Being at one with nature is said to be a very calming, relaxing, and mindful experience, escaping everyday life and taking in the beautiful, natural sights that this world has to offer. While there are some dangers out in nature, many of them are known to us, avoidable, and can be handled safely. What no one would expect to come across, however, is a killer with such evil intentions. A killer whose senseless crime has sent shockwaves through the United States. Let's uncover the unsolved murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Hello and welcome to the 44th episode of Uncover True Crime Podcast. My name is Stephanie, and each week we uncover a different unsolved true crime case, ranging from unsolved murders, missing persons, Jane and John Does, and suspicious deaths. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and other podcast streaming apps, as well as on YouTube by searching Uncover True Crime. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at uncover_pod and on Instagram at Uncover True Crime Pod. You can also join the Uncover True Crime discussion group on Facebook. But without any further ado, let's uncover the unsolved murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Abigail Joyce Williams was born on the 23rd of June 2003, and her best friend Liberty Rose Lynn German was born on the 27th of December 2002. The pair lived in Delphi, Indiana, a small city that, as of 2018, was home to just over 3,000 residents. The girls clicked immediately when they met at school and quickly became the best of friends. The girls were very creative and enjoyed photography, painting, and playing saxophone in their school band. They were also very sporty and were looking forward to joining the school's volleyball team. Abbie and Libby were just like any other teenage girls, until their lives were cruelly taken from them in February 2017. On the 13th of February 2017, 14-year-old Libby and 13-year-old Abbie had the day off of school, and as it was unusually warm for that time of year, they made an impromptu decision to go out walking at the Monon High Bridge, which is part of the nature trail in Delphi. In Kendall Ray's YouTube video on this case, Kelsey German explained how she dropped the girls off at the nature trail around 1 p.m. and that the girls had already made arrangements for Libby's granddad to pick them up later in the afternoon. At 2:07 p.m, Libby uploaded a photo onto her Snapchat story of Abbie walking along the bridge, and nothing seemed amiss, until the girls didn't turn up at 5 p.m. to be picked up as they had previously arranged. Kelsey told Kendall Ray that she was called at work to see if she had heard from either Libby or Abbie, and she confirmed that she hadn't. She, along with other family members, searched for the girls, but with no success, so the decision was made to report Abbie and Libby as missing people. The police made it clear that at the time they did not suspect foul play and assumed the girls had merely gotten lost, although they did say that their main concern was the girls' risks of exposure to the elements. Several volunteers and residents of Delphi looked for the girls for hours until the search was called off for the night at 12 a.m. But the next day, which was Valentine's Day, the search resumed. The perimeters of the search expanded into the abandoned railroad tracks and the Deer Creek near the bridge. It wasn't long until one of the searchers announced that they had found a shoe. Minutes later, they made a horrifying discovery: 2 bodies less than a mile away from where the girls had been dropped off the day before. The next day, the bodies were publicly identified as being those of Abigail Williams and Liberty German, and that they hadn't simply gotten lost. They had, in fact, been murdered. The community was devastated at the loss of the girls, and horrified that something like this could happen in such a small community like Delphi. On the 18th of February, thousands of people attended a vigil for Abbie and Libby at their high school, and counsellors were made available to all students. As the German and Williams family mourned for the loss of the girls, the police got to work to try and find out who could be responsible for the crime. When discussing the case, Detective Jerry Holman stated, quote, "We thought we were going to get the clues that we needed and be done with this in 4 or 5 days. We realised that this was a totally different type of investigation," unquote. Police have always remained tight-lipped on many of the details in the case, including how the girls died and on specific details of the crime scene, but that doesn't mean they haven't been working hard behind the scenes. 2 days after the girls were found, a search warrant was issued for a property on Bicycle Bridge Road, but no arrests were made, and it is not clear if anything of importance was found during the search. About a month later, another search warrant was executed on the property on the nature trail where the girls' bodies had been found. Police were quick to assure the public that the property's owner, Ron Logan, was not a suspect or person of interest, and that this was, quote, a normal part of the investigation, unquote. On the 22nd of February, the Delphi police, along with representatives from the FBI, held a press conference where they released a still image of the suspect and a short audio clip of the suspect's voice. In the clip, you can hear the man saying, "Down the hill." I will play that clip for you now 4 times.
Down the hill. Down the hill. Down the hill. Down the hill.
During the press conference, police revealed that both the image and audio clip were gathered from Libby's phone, as she had recorded the man while he was engaging in, quote, suspected criminal activity. Officer Tony Locum, who spoke at the press conference, called Libby German a hero for having the presence of mind to record the suspect, and I have to agree. I can't imagine how scared these girls must have been, and for Libby to still make the conscious decision to record the man is nothing short of incredible, and a lot can be learned from her actions. The full press conference can be found on YouTube, and you can see how this case has affected the police officers who are investigating it. In particular, the Indiana State Police Superintendent Douglas Carter, who looked very emotional while he was talking. I don't think that simply reading a quote would do it justice, so I'm going to let you listen to his words for yourself.
Words tend to escape during these periods of times, and I've only had a couple of other situations in my lifetime where I'm able to stand before you and say that. Why Libby? Why Abbie? Why Delphi? Why Carroll County? Why the region? Why the state? Why even in the nation? I say that because this is a classic example and a clear example that evil lives amongst us. To the family, to the community, the region, the state, as a leader of the Indiana State Police, I say, I am so very sorry. To the people dressed funny like me and those that represent the law enforcement profession, please understand we're human beings just like you. I'd stand anywhere in the nation with people standing behind me, and I would suggest to you that every time something like this happens, a little piece of us dies as well. But I also want you to understand how committed we are as a collective one, and we will continue. This has been briefed all the way up to the director of the FBI, Director Comey, and Greg Mass is going to talk a little bit about that. I've had an opportunity to speak to my boss, Governor Eric Holcomb, a couple different times about this situation, and every time I do, I see this look that comes over his face, just like yours in this community's. And that's the unfortunate experience of experiencing evil. We're not stopping. The poster in front of you, someone knows who this individual is. Is it a family member? Is it a neighbor? Is it an acquaintance? Is it an associate? Or maybe that one guy that lives over at that one place that just kind of not right. Maybe it's his jeans. Maybe it's his jacket or his sweatshirt. Maybe it's his shirt tail. Maybe it's his posture. Maybe it's the right hand in his pocket. You see, even with technology, we need human intelligence. In other words, we need you. Abbie and Libby deserve us. They deserve every single one of us, and not just the people standing up here on the stage that have given so much of their lives to not just this, but to this profession, but each and every one of you. Each and every person listening, watching, or seeing this in some form, we need you. Libby and Abbie need you. As poor as this picture is, somebody knows. And if you're watching, we'll find you. Who's next? I hate to ask you that question, and I'd give my life to not have to. But I know you've asked yourself that very question. We must recognize it. You see, we're all the same. We're all human beings. We must keep our resolve for Libby and Abbie, for this community, and frankly, to ensure that good trumps evil, and it will. We will stay committed with resolve very, very rarely exhibited with human behavior until this conclusion. Please be patient. Become our partners and communicate with us as often as you can. And now from a very humble servant, that's the most blessed guy on this planet to represent the profession that I represent, to Abbie and Libby. It's my hope and my prayer that you're now experiencing God's promise of eternal peace.
FBI Assistant Special Agent Greg Massa also spoke at the press conference and said that the FBI were supporting the Delphi police in the investigation and spoke about a potential profile for the suspect. He stated that on the day of the murder, they may have missed work, an event, an appointment, etc., and while they may have had a plausible excuse at the time, they asked that people now reflect on this and see if that excuse still seems valid. He said that the suspect's behaviour may have changed immediately after the murders. They may have moved, quit their job, changed their hair or general appearance, started dressing differently, their mood may have changed or become more erratic or depressive, or they possibly could have started misusing drugs or alcohol. He also explained that the suspect may be following the case closer than most and urges anyone who has noticed any of these changes in a friend, acquaintance or loved one's behaviour to come forward, even if they wish to submit their tip anonymously. The release of the audio and video resulted in hundreds of tips being called into police, and they followed up on them all. They interviewed thousands of witnesses, and Superintendent Douglas Carter believes the killer is amongst them. Here is an audio clip from the second press conference held in 2019.
To the killer, who may be in this room, we believe you are hiding in plain sight. For more than 2 years, you never thought we would shift gears to a different investigative strategy, but we have. We likely have interviewed you, or someone close to you. We know that this is about power to you, and you want to know what we know. And one day, you will. A question to you. What will those closest to you think of when they find out that you brutally murdered 2 little girls? 2 children. Only a coward would do such a thing. We are confident that you have told someone what you have done, or at the very least, they know because of how different you are since the murders. We try so hard to understand how a person could do something like this to two children, to the murderer. I believe you have just a little bit of a conscience left, and I can assure you that how you left them in that woods is not what they're experiencing today.
At this press conference on the 22nd of April 2019, he revealed that the police were releasing new audio of the suspect, a video of him walking over the bridge, and a new sketch of him. In the new piece of audio that the police released, you can hear the male suspect saying, "Guys, down the hill." I'm going to play it now 3 times.
Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill.
He also made a point of mentioning that as the bridge is not very stable, the way the suspect was walking might not be their natural walk. Quote, "I've walked across the high bridge myself. It's 65 to 70 feet off the river deck. It hasn't had a train on it since 1929. The ties are starting to rot. It sways back and forth, and it's not something you can just jump on or walk straight across if you've never done it before." That wasn't the first time he's been on that high bridge. My opinion, again, that's my opinion. I experienced it. I kept a piece of the high bridge, and I'll carry it with me until we find out who this is. Unquote. He stated that the suspect was a white male between the ages of 18 to 40, but may appear younger than he actually is. He is between 5'6" and 5'10", weighs between 180 to 120 pounds, has reddish brown hair, and is likely either from, has spent significant time in, used to, or still does live in Delphi. In the April 2019 press conference, Douglas Carter also asked for the public's help in identifying the owner of a vehicle that was parked at the old CPS/DCS welfare building on County Road between the hours of 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. on the 14th of February 2017, which is the day that the girls were found. Although he did not disclose the make, model, license plate number, or even the colour of the car, so I'm not sure what, if any, leads they'll be able to get from this. And as far as I've been able to find, they have not released any more information about this vehicle. Many local people and businesses in Indiana have donated to the reward money that the police are offering for information related to the case, and as of January 2021, the reward for information is in excess of $200,000. Despite all the investigative efforts, support from the community, and the extensive media coverage that this case has garnered, it remains unsolved almost 4 years later, and all we have are theories, which, like all theories we discuss on this podcast, are pure speculation. The first theory is that a man called Daniel Nations, the only publicly identified person of interest in the case, is responsible for Libby and Abbie's murders. In September 2017, Daniel was arrested on weapons charges after threatening people with a hatchet on a nature trail in Colorado. This was not the first time Daniel had been in trouble with the police, as he'd been on the sex offenders register since 2007 after being convicted of indecent exposure, a crime which he has been subsequently arrested for 7 times in 3 different states. At the time of the murders, he was registered as living in Morgan County, Indiana, which is around 89 miles away from Delphi, although I don't think it's impossible he could have travelled to the area, especially since I believe he owned a car at the time and he seems to have a particular liking for hiking trails. Now, this next detail might just be a coincidence, but his wife filed for divorce just a few months after the murders. It's important to say that obviously I have no insight or knowledge on their relationship, and I don't know if they've been separated for a while before this, but I do know that she was with him when he got arrested in Colorado on the 25th of September 2017. In an article written by the Gazette, Daniel's wife Caitlin states that she believes he was at an antenatal appointment with her on the day that Abbie and Libby were killed. And while I am not accusing her of lying, I think the use of the word believe is interesting. And surely if he was there, this would be easy for police to confirm as a solid alibi. There are conflicting media reports on whether Daniel Nations is still a person of interest, but in his mind, he's been found guilty in the court of public opinion and has referred to himself as a victim in all of this. He then went on to say that he would never dress in the way that the suspect in the photo taken from Libby's phone was dressed because, quote, I have more respect for myself, unquote. So enough respect to expose himself to people and threaten them with hatchets, both of which he pled guilty to, but too much respect to wear a windbreaker and jeans. Okay. He says that he wants to move on with his life and denies any involvement in Abbie and Libby's murders, saying, quote, I just want people to know the truth, that I am not a monster. So what if I've made mistakes? I'm a good person, I'm a good father, unquote. There is a lot of information online about people referring to Daniel as being a weird guy, and while I am inclined to agree, that does not a murderer make, and while I am absolutely not defending statements he has made or crimes that he has committed, given everything I was able to source online about his childhood and background, I don't think it's any wonder the guy is a bit weird. Anyway, moving on. The next theory I want to touch on relates to a man called Thomas Bruce. On the 29th of November 2018, he entered a Catholic supply store with a gun and forced the females inside to take off their clothes. When one of them refused to do so, he shot her in the head and raped the other 2 women. He was charged with 17 felonies in total, including murder, sodomy, and attempted sodomy, and his trial was scheduled to start in August. The reason I am mentioning him as a possible theory is because there is said to be a lot of similarities between the 2 cases. Police from neither department have expanded on this or confirmed whether or not he is being considered as a possible suspect or person of interest, only that at the time that they communicated about the similarities, that it was, quote, too early to make a connection, unquote. Thomas Bruce didn't have a criminal conviction prior to this arrest, although he is being looked at in relation to other murders, and personally, it seems unlikely to me that if he is indeed guilty of the crime he is being accused of, that was his first murder. He is currently being held with no bail and may face a death penalty if he is convicted. The third and last theory that I want to talk about is that a man called Paul Etter is possibly involved in the murders. On the 22nd of June 2019, an unnamed woman was driving home in Tippecanoe, Indiana, and got a flat tire. Paul stopped and offered to help her. She refused and continued to drive, albeit very slowly. He followed her, and when she was eventually forced to pull over, he handcuffed her, abducted her, and sexually assaulted her. Police searched for him for 5 days, which led to a standoff between Paul and the police, which lasted 5 hours. It ended with him saying that he did it because, quote, the devil got into him, unquote. He apologised to his friends and family and then ended his own life. One of the police officers who is investigating Abbie and Libby's murder, Carroll County Sheriff Toby Lansonby, has confirmed to the media that Paul's name, quote, has come up through the process, unquote, but did not elaborate further. This could mean anything. It could mean that someone phoned in a tip about him which they have ruled out or not been able to confirm, or it could mean that he is being considered as a suspect. We really don't know. What we do know is that someone killed 2 innocent teenage girls and have not yet been brought to justice. Abbie and Libby's murders have really highlighted the evil that exists in the most unexpected of places. But there are also some amazing people out there who have gone over and beyond to make sure that Abbie and Libby's memories live on and to help ensure that one day police will find the man responsible for this senseless crime. The singing contractors, a duo based in Indiana, also heard about the case and were moved enough to use their platform to raise awareness to the case by writing and performing a song dedicated to the girls, which I will play in the outro of this episode. Through this tragedy and their grief, the Williams and German family have come together to help build the Abbie and Libby Memorial Park, which will be around 21 acres in size and will contain softball and baseball fields, a nature walk, picnic shelters and playgrounds as a way of honouring the girls and remembering who they were. The park is still in the process of being built and is set to open later in the year. They are still looking for donations to be able to continue the construction work, so if you are in a position where you can donate and feel moved to do so, the link to the park's website will be in the description of this episode. Through her sister's death, Libby German has become a victim's advocate and has done some amazing work to help other people affected by crime, which truly is so inspiring. As I mentioned earlier, several people and businesses from Delphi and beyond have donated to the reward fund, which now stands in excess of $200,000. And while you would hope that people would come forward because it's the right thing to do, there is no doubt that this reward fund could go a long way to convincing those who do know something, no matter how small or insignificant it might seem, to come forward. I really do believe that one day Abbie and Libby's killer will be brought to justice. We just need the right people with the right information to come forward. If by any chance someone who knows something is listening to this, please think of the Williams and German family and how you would feel if, God forbid, something like this happened to your loved one. Even if you think that what you know doesn't matter or that it is too insignificant or unimportant, please let the police be the judge of that. If it is nothing or is irrelevant, it will lead nowhere. But what if it isn't? What if your information could help deliver justice to 2 heartbroken families and take a killer off the street? What if he does this again? No one wants that on their conscience, so please, if you have any information on Abbie and Libby's case, or you think you might know who is responsible for their deaths, please contact the Delphi Homicide Department hotline on 844-4595 786, or you can email abbieandlibbytip@cacoshrf.com. All this information will be in the description of this episode. If you are interested in learning more about this case, there are 3 true crime creators that I highly suggest you check out. The first is the Down the Hill podcast, which is an entire podcast series dedicated to this case. They have interviewed police and family members and have covered more information than I was able to cover on this episode, although they were an invaluable source to me while researching this episode, so I highly recommend that you give the podcast a listen. The second is a YouTuber called Kendall Ray, who I'm sure you're all very familiar with. She did a video on this case that featured Libby German, and again, it was one of the sources that I used for this episode. Last but not least is John Lorden, another true crime creator who I'm sure you are all very aware of. He has done a few videos on this case, and you can tell by the way that he talks about it that this case really has touched him, and his coverage on it is nothing short of superb. So again, I would highly recommend you check out his videos. All photos and sources related to this case can be found on our website, uncovertruecrimepodcast.co.uk. That's everything I have for you today. Thank you for listening till the very end. Please stay safe and have a good night.
I know your life on earth was troubled, and only you could know the pain. You weren't afraid to face the devil. You were no stranger to the rain. Oh, how we cried the day you left us. We gathered around your graves to grieve. I wish I could see the angels' faces when they hear your sweet voices say, go rest high on that mountain. Son, your work on earth is done. Go to heaven, shouting love for the Father and His Son. Go to heaven.